For years, the truth stayed hidden, the victims forgotten, the cases left cold, until science revealed what time could not. This is decades in the dark, where cold cases are brought back to light. On the night of August 2nd, 2006, just after 10:30 p.m., Robert Wone arrived at the Townhouse on Swann Street in Washington, D.C., expecting nothing more than a place to sleep. He was traveling for work and accepted his friend's offer to stay the night. He never made it through the night. Robert Wone was a successful lawyer, married, and deeply trusted by the people who invited him into their home. The house belonged to a longtime friend, and 2 other men were inside that night. All were professionals. All were calm. All claimed they tried to save him. But when police arrived, the scene they walked into made no sense, and it never would. The men spoke briefly. Robert sent a final message to his wife. He changed clothes. He went to bed in a guest room on the 2nd floor. By all accounts, the house went quiet. Less than 2 hours later, someone inside dialed 911. The call was calm, controlled, almost rehearsed. The caller said Robert had been stabbed and was unresponsive. Emergency responders arrived within minutes. What they found immediately raised alarms. Robert Wone was lying on the bed, on his back. He had 3 stab wounds to the chest and abdomen. He was already dead. What they found immediately raised alarms. Robert Wone was lying on the bed, on his back. He had 3 stab wounds to the chest and abdomen. He was already dead. But the room was spotless. There was no blood on the walls, no blood on the floor, no blood on the bedding, no signs of a struggle. Medical experts would later testify that Robert's injuries should have produced a significant amount of blood. Instead, investigators would determine that the blood had been cleaned up before police arrived. Someone had time. Police began asking questions. No one heard anything. There was no forced entry, no broken windows, no missing valuables. The men inside the house claimed an intruder must have entered, stabbed Robert, and left without waking anyone. But the physical evidence didn't support that. The back door was locked. The alarm system hadn't been triggered. The dog inside the house didn't bark. And then came one of the most disturbing details. Toxicology results suggested Robert may have been chemically incapacitated before he was stabbed. This was not a spontaneous act. It was controlled. Investigators reconstructed the timeline minute by minute. Robert arrives. Robert goes to bed. At some point, he is incapacitated. He is stabbed, deliberately and precisely. The scene is cleaned. The men wait. Then they call 911. Every step required time, coordination, and cooperation. And it all happened inside a locked house. The theory of an intruder collapsed. That left only one possibility: the people inside the house. There was no robbery, no known feud, no obvious reason Robert should have been killed. But investigators began uncovering a private world inside the townhouse. One marked by secrecy, tightly controlled narratives, and behavior that had never been disclosed. 2 of the men in the house, Joseph Price and Victor Zaborski, were in a long-term same-sex relationship. This fact itself was not illegal, hidden, or criminal. It became relevant only because prosecutors believed something intensely private may have occurred inside the home that night. Investigators never proved what Robert saw, but prosecutors believed he may have accidentally witnessed something inside the house that was never meant to be seen. Something private, something that could not leave that room with him. The theory was not about rage or robbery. It was about panic, about a moment where secrecy mattered more than consequences. Investigators could never prove exactly what happened inside the house that night, but over the years, several theories have emerged, all grounded in the same unshakable fact: there was no intruder. The most widely discussed theory is that Robert accidentally witnessed something private inside the home, triggering panic rather than violence driven by anger. Prosecutors suggested that whatever he saw created a situation the men believed could not be allowed to leave the house with him. Another theory proposes that a consensual situation escalated unexpectedly. Under this view, the killing itself was not planned, but the cover-up was. This theory is often cited to explain the use of chemical restraint and the careful cleanup afterward. Less commonly, some have suggested a non-sexual confrontation or an accidental death followed by fear-driven decisions. But medical testimony made clear that Robert's wounds were deliberate, controlled, and inconsistent with an accident. What investigators agree on is this: Robert did not die because of a random act of violence. He died because of something that happened inside that house, and because the people there chose silence over truth. In 2010, the men were charged, not with murder but with obstruction of justice, evidence tampering, and conspiracy. The prosecution could not prove which man delivered the fatal wounds, but they could prove something else: that the scene had been altered, that the men lied, and that Robert's death was covered up. The judge ultimately ruled that Robert Wone was murdered, but acquitted the defendants due to insufficient evidence to convict any single person of the killing. Legally, no one was held responsible. Factually, the court acknowledged what everyone already knew. There was no intruder. Robert Wone was killed inside that house by someone who was already there. Robert's wife never received justice, his killer was never named in court, and the truth remains locked behind silence. This case is one of the most chilling examples of how a crime doesn't need chaos or darkness to succeed. Only privacy, cooperation, and time. Robert Wone walked into a house he trusted, and the people inside ensured he would never walk out. This is Decades in the Dark, where science brings the past to light. Subscribe for more stories where justice never expires.